Hello, my name is Dr. Levy. I'm a neuroscientist and a Broncos fan. I'm here to explain about Tim Tebow and how his brain allows him to do that marvelous thing that he does. Tim Tebow is the quarterback for the he's now the quarterback for the New York Jets. Go Jets! But in any case, he was the quarterback for the Denver Broncos. And he has the unusual ability to dramatically improve his performance when the game is on the line. According to a group of Harvard researchers, his stats wins ratio is a statistical anomaly and can only be described as miraculous. There is considerable debate among the experts, but the one thing that everyone seems to agree on is this: what he is doing simply can't be done. So, let's look inside his brain and try to explain this phenomenon from a neuroscience point of view. The vast majority of human brains, of course, perform less well when there is intense pressure. In order to perform more well under pressure, you need to, either have like antisocial personality disorder, in which case you have zero emotional response to stress-inducing stimuli, or you need to practice some form of meditation like hypnosis, yoga, trance, prayer, etc., so that you can get into a zone at crunch time. Alternatively, you can just practice being in a zone at crunch time over and over and get good at it. But how does your brain do this? Well, first of all, there are numerous recent studies that suggest that the brain is not hardwired at birth like we used to think. It can adapt and it can change during your lifetime. If you do the same activity repeatedly, for example, then the part of your brain that does that activity will increase both functionally and anatomically. For example, if you shoot basketballs over and over, your performance will improve with time, and the parts of your brain that do this behavior will essentially hypertrophy. Not exactly hypertrophy, but essentially. It is kind of like exercising your biceps and causing them to increase in size and strength as you're able to lift more weight. Second, let's consider meditation. Several brain imaging studies done recently seem to indicate that experienced meditators have brains that function differently compared with novice meditators. For example, if we consider Tibetan monks who routinely meditate several times per day, when they undergo functional images, it reveals that they have increased activity in specific areas of their frontal cortex. Of course, further research is needed, but I think it's reasonable at this point to suggest that if you practice meditation for long enough, you will likely be able to improve your ability to perform well in stress-inducing situations. You will be better able to get into a zone, so to speak. Now, Tim Tebow is, of course, not a Tibetan monk, but he was born in the Philippines to parents who are Christian missionaries. And of course, he has prayed, which is a meditating activity, multiple times since he was a small child. Now, when the Broncos are losing late in the game and the pressure is at its maximum, we frequently have seen Tim Tebow take a knee and put his fist on his forehead. You can see his lips moving as he's praying. Then he enters the game in a zone. For him, the game slows down. He can now, see everything more clearly, and his heart rate is just a steady 60 beats per minute. Now, the crowd noise fades into the background. He becomes aware, then, of details that he may have previously overlooked, like, let's say, the eye expression of a backside linebacker. Now, he's more aware than ever of the feeling that there's sort of a presence of another being who's exerting a calming influence. For Tim, this is the presence of God. And in this state, he has little trouble driving his team down the field to win the game. Now, in addition, when his overall behavior when not meditating is focused, confident, and stable. He knows who he is, he knows what his goals are, and he's able to ignore irrelevant stimuli and focus on the task at hand. The relationship between this behavior and routine meditation has been described repeatedly over the years by advocates of meditation, but we are only now able to find corroborating evidence through neuroscience. Therefore, I think it is reasonable at this point to suggest that A, when Tebow is Tebowing, he is exercising the part of his brain that does focus attention. And B, in Tim, this brain structure is likely as big as his biceps. C, when he enters the game at a stress-filled moment, he's able to actually play better because of this light state of trance. Now, let me explain a little better about what trance states are in relationship to the subconscious brain. The human brain does two things that are remarkable in the animal kingdom. Number one, the brain can synthesize multimodal sensory input. Multimodal means like different kinds of senses, like eye, hearing, sight, smell, taste. The brain can synthesize different kinds of sensory input together and consider them as one. And two, our brains have the ability to empathize, that is, to understand how other people or how other brains and other humans are thinking and feeling. Now, these two cognitive activities require an enormous amount of extra storage capacity, which is likely why we grew such abnormally large cerebral cortexes. Our brains must process such a large amount of information that if we were consciously aware of it all the time, we would likely go crazy. In fact, some of us who are crazy are probably aware of too much information most of the time. Therefore, our brains evolved the ability to process this information outside of our conscious awareness. Now, this information is stored in a place we call the subconscious. It turns out that we frequently listen to and use information from our subconscious brain, but we call it thinking with our gut or having a gut-level instinct. So, you see, hear, smell something in the context of interacting with other humans whose thoughts and feelings you can sense. This input is quickly synthesized and it directs your behavior. You act quickly, but you have no knowledge of why you're so compelled to act in that way. Then you say, I had a gut instinct. Also, children are generally better able to enter a trance state than are adults. Now, anyone who has raised a small child knows that their little brains spend a lot of time, somewhere else, right? And of course, children listen to their gut instincts a little more than do adults. This ability decreases as you mature unless you exercise it regularly. We know that children, for example, who are abused often go into trance states as a defense mechanism during the abuse. These kids are actually frequently able to retain access to the trance state well into adulthood. I would suggest that the same thing may occur with meditation. If you begin meditating, as Tim TEBOW did, at an early age, and do it regularly every day, then you are exercising the part of your brain that does focused attention, and you may retain this ability into adulthood. In fact, we have now demonstrated that if you keep meditating regularly, you will actually change your brain's underlying structure and function. Now, since gut instincts frequently provide superior information compared with conscious thought processes, especially at times of intense stress, wouldn't it be nice if you could somehow tap into your subconscious brain and make better use of your gut instincts? Well, meditation and prayer are ways to do just that. It is my belief that when someone is praying, they are talking to their own subconscious brain. The subconscious brain is so hidden from conscious awareness that when you talk to it, you have the sense that you're talking to someone else who is outside of you. I think that most people who are praying have the idea that they are talking to an invisible human-like being, who lives somewhere up above the clouds. Additionally, your subconscious brain seems to be better at listening to your instinctual responses. For example, there is a brain structure called the Anterior Cingulate Cortex, which is located just posterior to the prefrontal cortex. This structure lights up on functional imaging when a subject experiences conflict. This correlates with the subject reporting a negative emotional state. In other words, when someone disagrees with you, your anterior cingulate cortex actually relays information that causes you to feel bad, like in your gut. Also, when you experience agreement, other structures in your brain affect other bodily functions to make you feel warm and snuggly. Now, this would seem to be an advantage for a social species because it would influence everyone in your small group to agree and get on the same page. For a species that relies on social bonding to survive, it's really important to get everyone on the same page and for teamwork to be the top priority. Okay, in summation, there are three major advantages that result from communication with your subconscious brain. 1, you feel warm and snuggly because, you're talking to someone who agrees with you. 2, you are accessing a much richer data bank of information that is critical to your upcoming actions. And 3, your anxiety goes down and your confidence goes up. Another way to think about it is that you can see more, hear more, and feel more, and taste more, and smell more without being overloaded with irrelevant stimuli. Do you remember that scene from Star Wars when Luke Skywalker can't hit the phaser burst with his lightsaber because he's wearing a helmet that takes away his vision? Then he opens his mind. He hears Obi-Wan say, "Use the Force, Luke." Presto magico, he hits every blast. Well, when Tim Tebow is stressed, he pauses and he listens to his Force, which is God. I argue it's his own subconscious. He enters a light state of trance where he becomes much more aware and much less distracted. Now, when he comes out of this trance, the background noise becomes a deafening roar. Well, when he was playing for the Broncos, it might have been a deafening silence if he was in Oakland's black hole. But when he was at home at Mile High, it was most definitely a roar. Go Broncos! Oh, and go Jets now.